Hello everyone. Please grab some snacks and then take a seat. We'll start in a bit. Hello everyone, please have a seat. We'll start in a couple minutes. Hello everyone, how was your Slush so far? Welcome to the side event how 5G/6G will change our lives in post-COVID technology and market conditions. I'm your host this afternoon. My name is Oliver Schulberg and I'm head of 5G Mökki at Start North. You will hear more about 5G Mökki later today. This afternoon we're going to hear amazing and interesting keynotes about new technologies and how important those are when the world is hopefully going back to normal or new post-COVID normal. But with further ado, let's welcome our first speaker to the stage. He is serial entrepreneur Peter Westerbacka.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it's great to be here. And just looking at this room, this is actually about the same size as the first Slush event. We had about 300 people when we started Slush in 2008. So, you know, good start. Looking forward to having then, you know, like in a few years' time, the 5G Mökki event with like 20,000 people or something like that. So yeah, good start. But anyway, so I think that the most important thing, you know, like when we talk about 5G, 6G, and I'm sure somebody's dreaming about 7G, and you know, like we'll keep adding Gs, I guess. But I think that that's one thing that, you know, keeps happening. But one thing that remains the same is that it's all about the people. And if you look at now like Slush and kind of like what we have been doing all these years, it's all about bringing people together. And I think that this is something that, again, it's great to see all of you here and talking about the 5G Mökki and like what we need to do there, because what we need to do is we need to work together. And again, good start to have you here, but then also I've been happy to see that these 5G Mökkis are popping up, you know, here and there. You know, so was in Lappeenranta and very nice setup at LUT there, and I'm sure that we're going to see many, many more. And we had the event with the HAMK people in Hämeenlinna as well, so very good. But of course, we want to see the same thing happen, you know, like all over the planet. And one thing that also what I've been, you know, okay, besides you know, being involved with getting Slush going back in the day, and then, you know, as Mighty Eagle at Angry Birds for many years. But big focus on actually three things, and the three is education and entrepreneurship and entertainment. And I think that these things will also drive the development of 5G and 6G and all of that. So we really need to look at like the big picture. And again, coming back to this, that to make all of this work, we need to work together. And that's what it's all about. And that's why it's great to see, the 5G Mökkis at the university campuses, because that's where the talent is hanging out. That's where the young people are. And I always, like to say that it's a job of us, slightly older people, to make sure that we keep the old people and the governments out of the way, and we let the young people change the world. So that's what it's all about. So yeah, we have a few young people here. Could be younger, I think, but okay. I know that we have more of that, as part of the crowd that is typically hanging out at the 5G Mökkis. But yeah, anyway, that was pretty much like all I had in mind today. But yeah, it's about the people. So great to see you all here, and yeah, looking forward to the fantastic keynotes that the team has lined up here. So again, welcome to Slush on my behalf as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next, we are gonna hear about 6G and how it's going to change our life. Welcome to the stage, Professor Ari Pouttu from University of Oulu.
All right. Thank you all. So I was first trying to figure out a way how to describe the use cases, the visions of 6G. Either I was incapable or too lazy to do that, so I took a video. It's about 4.5 minutes, so let's use that, and then I will talk to you about 6G for about 10 minutes. But first I get to breathe for 4.5 minutes, and then we go. So, the number of use cases obviously is almost unlimited. So, let's go into the slides then. How do we get the, like this? So I will talk a little bit about the 6G. First, what is 6G? Nobody knows. Obviously, it's the answer at the moment. But let's start first looking at the Gs. They appear every 10 years. So there was 1G, 2G, they were about speech. 3G, 4G was about more mobile broadband, so bringing the internet into our pockets. And now we have embarked on a journey of connecting trillions of objects and trillions, millions of processes and bringing in new digital services. So basically automating the society as much as we can. So 5G will start the journey that will be, in quotes, completed by 6G. And this is the first evidence that it appears that even though the Gs come every 10 years, the market transformation happens in cycles of 20 years. So, what is a few words about the program that we have been doing here in Oulu since 2018. It's about 8-year program, about 250 million euros. It's operated by the University of Oulu, and obviously we have a lot of collaborators. Nokia, VTT, Aalto University, Business Oulu, Oulu University Applied Sciences, Keysight, India Digital. These are what we call co-creators. And then we have 300 project partners in different projects funded by EU, funded by Business Finland, funded by many different sources, and obviously the companies by themselves. When we initiated the program, we decided, okay, we need 4 different research areas to come up with the 6G solution. First one, obviously, is the wireless connectivity. How we boost the capabilities from 5G to 6G, even more than the 5G will promise us. And we decided, okay, let's go for ridiculous speeds. 1 terabit per second on wireless domain is the target that we have set for ourselves. And then on the other hand, ultra-reliable low latency communications. There are a lot of applications, holography, industrial process control, self-driving cars that really need very, very low latency. The 1 millisecond promised by 5G is sufficient for many different applications, but there are more. Then this 1 terabit per second tells us that we need a huge part of spectrum to be able to transmit such data rates. And that means we need to go higher in the spectrum. And then we start having this problem that the semiconductor materials used to build our circuits, they start to fail around 100 gigahertz. So we need to figure out new semiconductor materials to be able to go beyond 100 gigahertz all the way to 300, 400, even 1 terahertz frequencies. So new materials. New materials, higher frequencies, new physical phenomena also start to happen in these materials. We need to either compensate them or exploit them in our next generation circuit designs. And this means again that when we do new circuits in new fashion, it means that we need to figure out how to manufacture these circuits again. So that's devices and circuits. Third area is the fact that we will, in the 6G era, have computing elements everywhere in the network. That is not the case in 4G, and 5G already has the capability, but it's not anywhere there yet. 5G will introduce later on compute capability as a function within the network, so bringing in the capabilities of process, artificial or machine learning way, really fast processes nearby, making these real-time society a possibility. Services and applications. 2 areas. How do we consume data in 2030s? Is it a smartphone? Partially, yes. But it seems to be that wearables and holographic communications start to take place more and more when we go further into 2030s. So new ways to consume data. And then the value networks. The 6G networks, when we go to those higher frequencies, they will be mostly indoor networks. Now, when they come indoor, what happens? They come to premises which are owned by somebody. And this will break the mobile operator paradigm rather seriously. A new type of operators start to appear, which operate, one operator might operate hospitals, another one factories, third one shopping malls, fourth one campuses, fifth one stadiums. So new business opportunities will appear because the paradigm is changing. We go indoors where the building owners now have a say. So we had these different type of things. One was the high data rate. So there are a lot of different things that you can provide when you go higher and higher and higher in the data rate. Holography, real huge experience, immersive experience in extensive, really huge XR type of things where you have 16K videos with huge high refresh rates, in-chip radios, in-device radios, data center connectivity, so replacing the cables, whatever, data kiosks. Then on the low latency side, when you go to the left upper hand corner of the box, high hysteresis-free remote control with haptics. So you need to really feel if you do a surgery. You need to feel what you are doing, and you cannot have long delays there. Then in the low jitter corner here, again, holography. When you start to bringing a lot of different streams from different places, you need to synchronize them really good. Otherwise, your picture starts to look. And then, new thing that appears with 6G is imaging and sensing. Your devices will have thousands, even tens of thousands of antennas, and it starts to resemble sort of like pixels in your camera. And your radio signal, while it's transmitting data, can actually take pictures of its environment and sense what's there. And this will bring totally new capabilities. Real-time digital twins and real-time remote control from the virtual digital twins. Again, holography will benefit from this. Extreme swarms, material identification, and then you could, if you have capability of using radio signals for imaging and sensing, you could bring the list down like. Anyway, this I already mentioned, local operator. We already in 5G era, in countries where regulations were more relaxed than, for instance, in Finland, like Germany, they already have 120, 130 private networks operated by private parties or mobile network operators. So we start to see this 5G, 6G change already now. And as I mentioned, new things will appear when you go higher. You start to get these new capabilities, terahertz imaging, millimeter level positioning, sensing of the environment, fire guys, they go into smoky building, they can see through the smoke. This is one thing that seems to become very necessary in the future. You need to have real-life testing environments for testing and proving to different vertical industries that these solutions that we are providing you actually work. They bring value to you, and they bring sustainability in your business. So these test networks are something that we need to have. This is slide of our own, which we have in Oulu. So we are going towards 6G test network. We are now having this millimeter wave 5G, 3.5 gigahertz 5G, and we expect to have in 2 years' time the first 6G type transceivers capable of doing not terahertz, not terabit per second, but maybe 150, 200 gigabit per second. And eventually have some kind of a first 6G test network around 25. And the time frame expected for these 6G technologies to become really real life products in the market is around 2030s. So there is still time to do the research. time to figure out what is a good business case in 5G and then eventually 6G era, and figure out why the mobile cellular, the last mile, why it will be more important. They will replace credit cards. And it will be the only, one of the main streams to access any platform service in the world in the future. If it's a mobile phone, it's clumsy, but then wearables, some kind of new devices will appear which will make it easier for you to do it. We are using this test network as a platform for digital services in our university. There is a project called Smart Campus, which is run by 8 universities, University of Applied Sciences in Finland, and we are capable of building on top of this wireless platform, wireless network, digital services that can be tested in these kind of test environments. And if you want more detailed information about 6G, it's not available. Well, it should be available, but for some reason, this one doesn't work. We have written several white papers within the 6G flagship, which describe different parts of the 6G future. Not only technology, obviously there is wireless connectivity, machine learning, localization, sensing. All of these are dealt with in detail in these white papers. But there is also business. What is 6G business? What are the sustainability aspects of 6G system designs? And that's about it. So I guess I end here and let somebody else continue. Thank you very much. I guess if you have time, yes. When we do the final system design phase starts in a couple of years' time. We start to look at different system design objectives, which are requirements for making the system providing sustainability not only to ICT itself, but for all the different verticals it's going to enable in terms of giving them mobility in wireless. For instance, the system can be used to measure everything in the environment and then optimize the performance of a process. Or there are 4 billion unconnected, unserved people in the world at the moment. One criteria we have set for 6G system is reach everybody. That's again providing sustainability towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals, because information is key to most of the SDGs provided by United Nations. And if we succeed in 6G design, providing either local or global connectivity to every person in the world, we have contributed to most of the SDGs already, and then we can use the system to measure what's happening in the world, to optimize further everything, provide services that provide something for poor communities, such things.
But it's so hard to imagine like the different communities you're talking about. We have planned obsolescence in the electronics in the market right now. Like 5G is coming and 6G comes, these technologies that they
Yeah.
10 to 20 years. We are not discarding our equipment on that, right?
No.
It's a lot faster. This just gives us more gadgets.
Yes.
If I
Yes, it's not going to remove the gadgets.
Yeah, so what you say is so hard, like polar opposite.
It's, at the same time, it's against the sustainability because you want to sell more gadgets and more new kind of gadgets, that kind of things. But at the same time, if you can, within the, first of all, the distances from base station to your user devices are going to be small, so the energy consumption per link is going to go down a lot. So you are saving energy in the future. Obviously, you need global coverage and national coverage that will be provided by 5G. And because this was what I was talking about, the revolutionary path of 6G. There will be also evolutionary path, which is providing coverage by spectrum refarming. But this is something that we have pushed into the global 6G agenda, the sustainability development goals, so that we at least think about it, try to figure out what is the best way to come up with system designs that supports the SDGs.
Thank you, Ari. Unfortunately, Tuuli Ahava is sick, but Veli-Pekka Luoma, partner and ecosystem lead at Nokia, is going to talk about where we're right now with 5G.
Thank you. So, unfortunately, Tuuli is not here, but then the spare one didn't come, and then they said to me that VP, go there and say something. No, I was prepared for that one, and used also the kind of information that Tuuli would be presenting. My history with Mökki is that we in Nokia, we collaborated, I think the time goes fast, it's 2.5 years ago, in a summer school, 5G summer school, and participated in creation of this kind of concept of 5G Mökki. And right now in this kind of this presentation, I will bring out the kind of situation and messages that what Nokia is doing as a business at the moment, but also there's a keywords over there with remote education and all of this kind of value proposition that we are touching in this this occasion. So relevant kind of a business which Nokia is running at the moment, naturally 5G, but the keyword is industrial business, enterprise business, and most of the demand is coming from the industrial segment. So therefore, the kind of this kind of segment is presented in the materials in a different aspects. But very kind of a major trend over there is that enterprises, private 5G networks, they are rolling out 380 delivered up to now by Nokia, and the segments are expanding, that what segments are kind of deploying private 5G, and especially led by industrial segment. Some latency over there. Okay, that's the next one. So 1 year ago we got a new CEO in Nokia, Pekka Lundmark started, and we created new mission, new strategy, and also refreshed our slogan, which probably somebody knows that we're connecting people. It's still a powerful slogan, but right now that we create the technology that helps the world to act together. And it's a powerful mission because as we've seen in the COVID times, Corona times, how critical the kind of more and more digital world is relying on the real-time connectivity, real-time processes, and that kind of a criticality is there not for only for the people, but the systems, so devices, solutions, machines, robots, drones, etc. Probably something with the battery. So the world is acting in a real time with the machines and devices, sensors, and that is creating the kind of a path that is a basic platform for the new applications, new services, with all the way to the 6G, as Ari presented over there. 5G is what we are delivering at the moment. And what we see as a kind of use cases and critical to the 5G is that those kind of component IoT, edge computing, hybrid cloud, artificial intelligence, robotics, and then AR, VR, or XR kind of use cases. These are the kind of industry 4.0 drivers what we are serving with our customers. And the key segments that we are serving, the energy, transportation, public sector, manufacturing, and supply chain, the major 4 components. And here we see the magic words in the digital agenda: smart cities, education, and smart campuses. This is the kind of a title that connects us to the 5G Mökki. Also to the mission of making the world to act together. If you are able to actually contribute to the education, expand and make it democratic, easy, cost efficient to expand the education using the kind of modern concepts, that would benefit in many ways society and many ways to our customers as well. So therefore this kind of a concept is valid for the Nokia and valid for the 5G private networks. Something a little bit on the labeling over there, but some examples that we are working at the moment. Utility, mining, airports, and ports are important with some use cases mentioned on customers over there. Oil and gas, railways, logistics, and energy. And even more, 4 more example segments appearing. The maintenance, business, mining, factory, and rails. So these are the kind of key segments that we are providing 5G, private 5G at the moment. The key benefits of that one: efficiency enhancement, agility in the processes, optimizing, better, faster, more accurate decision making in many ways, and then worker safety and productivity. Somehow I would actually connect this worker productivity as well to the 5G Mökki kind of a concept, how in industrial segment we could be expanding the competencies, training, education, making sure that there are the working standards. That could be one thing to discuss about. And sustainability here mentioned as well. The right information at right time, right decisions, right preparation would contribute to the sustainability in these use cases. Probably not going to the details on the use cases, but there are many involving drones, systems, automation, managing assets, decision making, autonomous systems. As I said, we are running at approximately 400 private wireless customers at the moment globally. And the business segmentation is such that in transportation we have 72 customers in energy, 97 in the public sector, 100, manufacturing 54, and industry 57 in terms of number of customers. And directly we are selling half, and indirectly half of the networks. There's a big opportunity overall in the world in the enterprise. 74% of the today's data counted to be not connected today. So there's a work to do for the 4.9, 5G and 6G as well to get everything connected. Why the 5G is then more kind of a valid option for our customers in comparison to the other technologies available over there. Trying to click on the right slide over there. A little bit making it clumsy. Still one way to go, I think. Compared to the 5G Wi-Fi connectivity, the licensed spectrum, the 5G, and the LTE, kind of advanced LTE, it has a wide and deeper coverage, predictable and manageable performance. It has a better security for the different applications, and one network providing coverage for all applications, including industrial IoT as well. The market view against the Wi-Fi is that in our customer reviews, the Wi-Fi is not kind of a valid connectivity that you could actually run your critical operations on top of with. A little bit on the random. But I stop here, actually not clicking further, but probably commenting once again the kind of relevance to the 5G Mökki. What we see is that based on our mission, the kind of connected campuses, remote education, contributing to the society, governmental customer behavior, and many other kind of competence management issues in our customers, the Mökki concept could be the one to actually formalize and standardize ways of managing the end-to-end process of distributing the connectivity, rolling out the relevant content and training and education standards, and expanding the utilization of 5G. So therefore, welcoming this kind of a innovation project like 5G Mökki has been, and gladly to see that that will be going to the market and be productized and adapted by the key players and prove itself for the use cases. Any questions related to Nokia and 5G, private 5G, and or generally our activity in this sector? Please go ahead.
What do you think is the most sci-fi thing of 5G that you have seen in operation so far?
Sorry, the word was?
The most advanced.
Most advanced of the 5G.
Yeah.
Probably when it comes to the kind of a challenging or the wider scope, but probably it was industrial use cases where you run the kind of critical operation and factories using the 5G. That is probably the most advanced. Also built on the legacy and adapted to the kind of running machine and running processes. But probably interesting is the kind of autonomous vehicles and running that kind of environment using the kind of remote controlled vehicles using 5G. That is one key issue. But there are tens of exciting applications already in 5G, not the way to the 6G that we could see deployed in coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Veli-Pekka. Next to the stage, Keith Ko, Osiris Bashir, Arjita Sethi, Phil Dillard, and Bobby Amiri.
Hi, everyone. I want to thank you all again for being here. Keith Koo from Silicon Valley. I'm an angel investor and a start mentor. And I really want to, first time in Finland, so I just want to thank you all for being great hosts, and to Petri and to Jari for hosting my team and our colleagues here. So a couple things. One of the things I don't really talk too much about here is I actually have a radio show in Silicon Valley called Silicon Valley Insider. That's more of my fun thing, but it is downloaded in about 130 countries. But I talk about emerging technology, I talk about investments, startups, a lot about corporate, where I came from. So currently, I'm an angel investor. I also am an advisor to US Capital Global. That is a $3 billion assets under management investment bank headquartered in San Francisco, but with offices in Europe, and we're opening up our Dubai office next week. One of the things that's really interesting is I've been in technology for almost 30 years. I might not look like it. And I was talking to Professor Ari a little bit earlier. I remember I was in M&A integration for Cisco, so this is really about communications and Cisco systems. When we did the first commercial Wi-Fi integration in Ohio, a company called Aeronet, I remember using a 1 megabit per second connection between our office and the hotel I was in. 11 megabits per second was the maximum potential throughput, and normally it was getting about 3 megabits per second in production. So what I really enjoyed with both Peter's kickoff and Professor Ari's 6G presentation and Veli's 5G, right, is that we're in a state right now where, as we talked about the fourth industrial revolution coming up in Industry 4.0, that the roots of telecommunication in the modern era does come from Finland, right? And I think that is really the really exciting part of being involved with Slush and being here with you today. So, yes, I have worked on over 100 M&A integrations and divestitures. I just mentioned that because the rate of technology increases. We talked about 20-year cycles. As I think about, we use this kind of joke that everything we ever needed to learn about technology we saw in Star Trek or in the movie Minority Report. And the opening video from Professor Ari was showing us a lot about what this future holds. I think the gentleman just left, but he was asking about sustainability. And I think it was not so much the impact on what we think about in terms of tangible goods, which is certainly part of it, but the enabling factors of what the technology brings for us. And I think, there we go. Okay. Oh, oops, sorry. Oops. Pointing it this way, right? Okay. So one thing that I'm really focused on, both in my investment mindset, my investment thesis, as well as the stuff I cover on my radio show and on social audio like Clubhouse, is this coming thought that McKinsey and companies like Bain have put out studies since about 2017 on the impact of AI, automation, and related technologies on the workforce, the global workforce. So if I said in the United States back in 2017 that McKinsey had already predicted, and again, this is very aggressive, that up to 39 to 75 million US jobs, just US alone, would be impacted negatively or impacted by these technologies, we get very concerned. How do we, as a society, a global society, as we think about university settings, as we think about training people, what is that impact when we have all these automation technologies? So we talk about that because we're in this time frame that we need to do something about that. We need to address that in order to make sure that our labor force, the people that are in school, that they have the skills needed, the term upskilling, in order to still be competitive in the sense of how we look at work today. And I'm one of those people that thinks that the nature of work, the way we educate will change just because of the different theories on how education rose in the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. So this slide really is just some projections about what the impact of 5G technologies will have or will not have if it didn't come to be. And so, of course, the number one most impacted industry in this slide is manufacturing. That without 5G technologies, almost 1 million jobs would be lost. And I'm not sure if this was global or if this was just the US alone, but that is something to think about, right? And so, back to the gentleman who left, if we think about how sustainability is not just the physical impact, but how societies, as they adopt these technologies, things that Nokia is coming out with, right? that they can both be impactful from our fear of automation, but also if we adopt it, that's where actually most of the projected job increases are expected. So McKinsey did update their slide last year, not their slide, but their actual research, and they did say that in that 39 million job projection is now up to 45 million jobs, a minimum in the US alone, but that mitigation would actually have a net difference of about 14 million jobs, right? So at least you can think about what better impact we could have. All right, so spending all the time this week with our friends here in Finland and talking about how this is really the epicenter of where telecommunications was really in the modern era rising. What's showing here is the global 5G value chain output and employment in 2035, right? So again, Professor Ari and I were talking about how really these are very aggressive timelines and maybe it's 2040, but let's not lose sight that these are predictions, whether it's 2030, 2035, or 2040. And you know, we can see here how in China, employment will grow by 9.5 million jobs, US employment will grow by 3.4 million jobs, and then rest of the world. And I think we can all say, well, where's Finland in this, right? I'm still a believer that the technology that came out and was born out of this country is still very relevant. You have a great test network, you have great resources, access to research, capabilities to university systems, and so we need to actually make this slide actually have Finland come back and be the power it should be. Again, another way of showing where people think that the investments are being made in 5G, and then of course we'll get to 6G. And again, you know, right now, certainly in the U.S., I'm of open, you know, full disclosure, I'm of Chinese descent, but I was born in the United States. We actually in the United States have a growing fear of Chinese technology, Chinese components, and what that means is an opportunity for other players to come back into the market. So, with that, I am going to hand this off. What? Wait, are you still? Oh, okay, sorry. I'm going to actually talk about why now, right? So I talked a little bit about the future of work and entrepreneurship. So one of the things that is happening, and I don't know if the terminology is here yet, but we talk about the Great Resignation. So during the pandemic, at least certainly in the United States, many people did not return to work. So if you think about growing up in a corporate setting and expecting to have employment in a company, so Cisco or Salesforce or Microsoft or Amazon, remote work enabled people, they liked remote work. That actually goes back to the importance of 5G technology and 6G technologies because as those technologies continue to develop, it enables people to have better access. Who would be surprised if I said that 39% of the United States does not have access to the internet? You'd be surprised, right? Right? So yeah, that's rural America, and actually 65% do not have internet access that's capable of supporting video conferencing, like Zoom, right? And you'd be shocked, right? Because I'm coming from Silicon Valley, or if you're from New York, but imagine being in middle America. So with the adoption of 5G, we can of course talk about Africa, we could talk about India, we could talk about other societies. I would argue that they're actually deploying mobility a lot faster than the United States because of all of our infrastructure on copper wiring still. That is something where, in order for us to really talk about what I said in a few slides ago, that the future work, future of entrepreneurship, as people are deciding to not go back to a corporate setting, as they want to become innovators and entrepreneurs on their own terms, that these are where the technologies come in. 5G, 6G, and beyond will empower new models of work and business. Why I say that is I grew up in monolithic technology like Cisco, which my favorite company I've worked for. The cost and the barrier of starting your own company has come down a lot, especially with the advent of cloud computing. 10 years ago, when I was still at Cisco, we talked about Dell, how they had transitioned from a startup they acquired and how they discarded that acquisition. But the founders of that company had reformed within 72 hours. Well, today that's still slow. You can actually form your company using Azure, using AWS, using other cloud technologies. You can form that company right away. Other new models of business is back to the slide that Professor Ari was showing on blockchain, on the future of 6G, blockchain enablement, decentralization. Of course, people who have that dream of a completely off-grid society or off-grid business model, that only can happen with the speed of information. And then that leads right into reduced inequality, increased global equity and inclusion. As more people have access to these new technologies, which are being developed globally, they have the ability to actually be entrepreneurs on their own term. And as we think about future of global society, that is, I think, where we're headed. So with that, we might have time for one question, and then I'll be done. No? Okay, I'm going to hand this off. Thank you so much. Yep. We're actually going to do a panel at the end and take questions. So thanks again. Thanks you for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let me first off by saying thank you to the predecessors that came before for highlighting the opportunities for 5G and why it's much needed in its current economic landscape, as well as the development of the human race as we continue down this path and our relationship with technology and our environment around us. I guess I'll start off. Oh, and also thank you very much to I went too far. To Yari and Petri for bringing us to Norway and allowing us to really see that all of Norway has to offer, and just the spirit of innovation is really alive here, and you can see it in the interactions with the people and just the efficiency in which the city runs. I created my first startup at 19. This was just a basic footwear, apparel, manufacturing, dropship service from the US to Japan. At 24, I worked for the world's largest footwear provider and manufacturer in New York and Asia Pacific. And most recently, almost a decade ago, I created an AI-driven digital marketing agency as a tool for people to better connect with their ideas and the world at large. Most recently, we had a film on HBO called Fake Famous, where we actually tested the ramifications of instant fame versus real-life engagement, where we use automations of various types to engage with the environment around us in dubious settings to try and trick the algorithm into thinking that we were other places that were very glamorous, creating a fanciful life more so than the one in real life, which a lot of us kind of indulge in that fantasy every now and then. But we just wanted to just show the world that you can connect with your environment around you without having to necessarily fabricate it. I completed a recent AI executive program at MIT where we studied many different use case studies for AI, from machine learning to RPA to various automations, and just going through the process of, and within the last 5 decades of the inception of artificial intelligence and how we're not headed necessarily for the fourth wave like most people think. When it comes to robotics, there's actually only a finite amount of neurons that we can program into a robotic entity in the form of an algorithm, which would be the brain, and then automations, which would be the robotics piece. And so until we get to that point, robots are not going to take over the world. They're actually only as good as the data that we can put into them. But more or less, AI should be used as a function to better engage with your environment. With the advent of 5G, 1 second, please. So globally, there's actually 6.3 billion cell phones currently on the planet, and 80.6% of them are actually smart. And so that means that 80% of the world is actually utilizing a form of AI at any given time. If you search for directions on your way over here, you used AI. If you heard a favorite song on the radio and you Shazammed it, that's artificial intelligence. If you ever went to a vending machine and wanted a Coke or a water and a robot went up and went to your search and then took your credit card information, you've used AI. This is a study that was done to kind of go over the next 10 years of AI and its capabilities, and you have everything from artificial intelligence, physics-informed AI, when you're actually putting data into a mechanism to generate a result. There's automated platforms, there's responsible AI, when you think of self-driving and you think of the age-old question, does the vehicle actually swerve and not hit 10 people and save 10 people but injure the driver, or does the driver continue on and hit the 10 people to save himself? And so as we continue to go down this path of AI, we're constantly at war with what's ethical and what isn't. And so when you think of the ecosystem that Finland kind of has been able to provide for the world, not only is there a robust environment for testing and engagement that Mökki can actually serve by the use of 5G technologies and just showing the world this type of capability through Finland and its history of bringing forward innovations, and also intelligent applications brought upon by machine learning by some of the test sites that this ecosystem does provide. Most use cases that you've probably heard of, AI cloud computing services, IBM Watson, AWS, a lot of these actually, believe it or not, would not be possible without 5G. And so as we progress through life and you want to have a more efficient life, whether it's ordering food or trying to solve complex problems that human beings can't possibly do, or simply repetitive automations, whereas if you look at the current industrial landscape of the world, there's vast robots that have to execute very complex engagements of lifting 1 metric ton beams in a factory, whether it's a supply chain or an assembly line. We have to program that sentiment to let the robot know that humans may be present. And so we essentially have a long way to go in terms of, I guess, self-automated AI, but right now we're currently in the phase of 2 to 5 years where we have edge AI, we have knowledge graphs, we have smart robots, but at the end of the day, we're still programming those deep neural nets to facilitate greater outcomes for machine learning and inputting those processes to better run our world. The world essentially is in our hands. We're more connected more than ever. With the advent of 5G and the amount of cell phones and access that we have to actually engage with our environment in a way that's very seamless, that we may take for granted, that's exactly where we're headed. And 5G facilitates this simply because we won't have the bandwidth in our current platforms to continue down this path if we don't have increased capabilities of cloud computational services such as smart computers and also AI. Reminders to live by: adversity is your greatest teacher. When dealing with artificial intelligence, a lot of it is repetitive learning into an actual machine. 90% of AI solutions actually fail. So don't be surprised if you see all these companies popping up saying that they can do X, Y, and Z when they really can't. You're actually smarter than you think. The computer will not outthink you. The robot will not outthink you. They still have multiple neurons to go before they can even function as a human. Most robots can't even walk up steps. Lead with love, for you have a powerful heart, and understand your money and master it. A lot of people are rushing to be a part of the new wave of technology, but if your heart is not in it, the robot will definitely know and you will not get the results that you want. Live with gratitude and perspective. Choose your relationships wisely and learn from your mistakes. Again, these are basic principles that go for any business or anybody looking to transcend or navigate this world of growing technologies. Again, AI will transform your world in amazing ways if you know how to use it. Most basic uses, again, are calling a car or being in an automated car service, generating your favorite song that you want to hear from NLP, or even as much as a Google search. AI processes will not make your job obsolete, but they'll simply enrich it. Again, a lot of service-oriented jobs that are repetitive and mundane otherwise will not necessarily take you out of the workforce. However, it will facilitate a greater need for you to actually interact with your environment and have a more meaningful job. AI can provide solutions to problems that we have yet to encounter. So when you look at global warming, when you look at supply chain issues, when you look at the advent of technology on our youth, these are problems these are solutions. AI provides solutions that are going to further facilitate how we're going to go about some of these problems that may arise. But for now, we're still learning as a society, and we have to kind of take it step by step and not try and rush forward. My name is Osiris Bashir. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Rajita Sethi, and it is amazing to be here. The clicker? Oh,
You can take it home.
perfect. Probably gonna take it home, yeah. Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm Rajita Sethi, I'm originally from India, and I was bored out of my high school, so I started a startup when I was 16. It was a vocational school that was trying to help with the employment gap and the skill gap that still exists in India. And I created this vocational school. It was a physical school where we would train about 10,000 people a year, and they would get their jobs. So I ran it for 7 years. The school is still running. It was fully profitable, bootstrapped. We used cross-subsidization models, so everybody could actually pay affordable fee, and still we were profitable. So in the 7 years that I ran the school, we reached about 100,000 people, and I realized that it is a building. At the end of the day, I would never be able to reach more than 10,000 people. And I am a video gamer, so I used to play video games, and I used to connect with all these people all around the world. And I used to wonder, wait, all these people, millions of people can play a video game, but I cannot give them education using a school. So something has got to change. Fast forward, 7 years ago, I moved to San Francisco for startup and love. All of that happened together because my then person who I was dating, we dated for a while, and then we immediately got married because we had the same startup idea. So there's this guy who works in a gaming industry in San Francisco. He sends me a message. I'm in India. He's in San Francisco. And he tells me, I love what you're doing. I've been seeing your pictures on Facebook. At that time, we used to use Facebook. We did not have dating apps. So we went ahead and we started talking about passions. And he had this passion for education. And he said, I'm building video games. It's not really fulfilling. I would love to help you and support you. And I said, great. I'm running into issues of scale with the model that I'm running. So this would be perfect. Fell in love. 9 months later, we got married. I moved to San Francisco, and we started building our edtech startup, which we realized that US might not be the right market to actually build an edtech startup at that time, because everybody thought that this was a difficult industry, business models are not right, and most of the people don't have access to technology to actually go ahead and start using applications that we were trying to build. Now remember, I love video games. I also love science fiction. I'm a big Harry Potter fan, crazy, biggest fan ever. So I had read, I don't know how many of you read this book of Neil Stephenson called The Diamond Age. It is a sequel to Snow Crash. And that was the book I was like, if we have to create something in education, I want to build the Diamond Age. I want to build this primer so that every child in the world can choose their path of passion and learn what they want. It still is not possible. We're nowhere close to that technology. But that's what we started building, and we came to Finland in 2018. We attended the XEDU Accelerator. It was an education accelerator. And our first VCs came from Finland. We were a Silicon Valley company. But our first VCs came from Finland. We got venture-backed, went back to Silicon Valley. We started doing research on this education and our product in Finland, and then we got venture-backed by early investors of Oculus in Silicon Valley. And that has been the journey, and the company is still running, and I'll show you a glimpse of that company. So got venture-backed, started doing angel investing myself, and during COVID, we moved out of San Francisco. We moved an hour away from San Francisco up to the woods, a forest, to a place where there are only 500 people. It's a remote location. People farm. People have animals. We live on the Pacific Ocean. We are surrounded by trees. 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been a possibility. But technology knew, corporations knew they would lose out business if they do not go faster. And 2 years later, just because of COVID, technology has caught up. And in this remote location, I can have accessibility of all around the world. I do not need to be in Silicon Valley anymore. I have access to Silicon Valley. I also sit on the advisory board of NASDAQ's Entrepreneurial Center. I help founders. I've been there for about 6 years. and I am a professor of entrepreneurship and creativity and innovation at 2 business schools. So just an overview. You see my husband and me, this team, School of Games. We were called School of Games at that time, and we were one of the semi-finalists for the Global Learning X Prize. This was a $15 million prize sponsored by Elon Musk and multiple corporations. Now remember, I was an immigrant, Indian immigrant, who moved to San Francisco. I did not come from a very rich family, and I was bootstrapped. I was still struggling to get funding, and I am non-technical. I am not a coder. So there was no way for me to be able to build a gaming startup, an edtech startup, and be successful. This is what my company is called today. It's called Equally. We changed the name. This is what we're building. And what we started realizing were 2 things. First of all, Pokemon Go happened in 2018. People started walking, collecting Pokemons. And we're like, wait, what is happening? People are moving on video game? This is amazing. How about we do something similar for learning? And then self-driving cars are able to recognize everything on the road. Wait a second. Can we use computer vision to actually start building and teaching kids from their surroundings? That's exactly what we did. None of this is our intellectual property. We used information and foundations provided by corporations. Professor Ari and a lot of people were talking about the last mile problem. This is interesting. This is one of the most exciting times to be a startup. You don't have to worry about devices and technology. Yes, there are people who don't have access to it, but a considerable number of people have access to it, thanks to the corporations that are working on these big problems. So go innovate. But the problems are many. As a startup founder, as an innovator, you're thinking about tech is expensive. You're thinking about global barriers. How do I reach this remotest kid in Ghana and Tanzania? And no stakeholder collaboration. Researchers, innovators, engineers are working in one silo. Then we have the investors in the other silo. And then we have all these business people getting together, trying to figure out what technology can do for people. All of us need to get together. And Mökki is a great value add there. Imagine a founder having access to all these collaborators to work together. The next bigger impact is going to come out of these 5 industries. I'm also biased. These are 5 of my favorite industries. So if you say this is not happening, I'm not going to say yes. This is my favorite thing. And these are the things that I'm doing right now. But we all are talking about Web 3.0 already. I was in talks yesterday, and we were talking about NFTs and metaverse, and of course, climate, that Phil is going to talk more about. And it is such an interesting time because all stakeholders have got together, and they really have identified it to be a problem. So that means there is money to solve this problem. Of course, fashion. Fashion is one of the biggest polluters, and the way it is changing with NFTs, it is going to be brilliant. The way it is changing with sustainability, it's going to be interesting. Education, my favorite industry. I think gaming, AR, VR, and computer vision is going to change the way we experience learning. It'll no more be just an app, which is a boring way. We've moved beyond that. And finally, affordable healthcare. We are going to get that access, and we'll be able to give that access to the remotest people around the world. And that is why if you are a startup, you're a founder, the best time to do something is today. As Professor Ari said, in the next 10 years, it's going to be a whole new consumer behavior. So you do not have to worry about underlying tech. Don't have to worry about it. Just go ahead and build it. You don't have to worry about being cash rich. You have platforms that are taking care of so many things. And lastly, you do not need to be in physical spaces. I'm Arjita. That's my time. I'm done. And I would like to hand over it to Phil, who is one of the most amazing ecosystem builders and truly talks about impact and capitalism that is much needed in today's world.
Thanks so much, Arjita. Thanks for the great introduction. Hello, everybody. Great to have you here. My name is Phil Dillard. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I live in San Francisco, lived all across the US, and you can read a little bit about my bio, but I'll tell you a little bit about how I ask people to introduce themselves. I say, who are you? Where are you from? Why does that matter? What are you about and why are you here? So I give you who I am and where I'm from. Why it matters is because I came from different place. Everybody came from a little different place in our crew. And we came from a relatively unassuming American family, but have come to this place where my parents and my grandparents could not even understand what I'm doing here now and some of the things we're about. What am I about? I'm about ushering in the future economy, where impact and financial returns meet, where we actually build mission-driven organizations to solve tricky goals, tricky problems like UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we do that in a way that's impactful, scalable, and profitable. I want to make 100 impact unicorns in the next year, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit today about how I think 5G fits into this story in a way that maybe you didn't think that it would, right? And I start with something really simple. I talk about rainforest. Rainforest is easy to grab onto because everybody, especially when you're walking down the street in Helsinki and it's 15 degrees Fahrenheit out and it's a little chilly, and you think, wow, it would be nice to be somewhere warm and green and delicious like this, right? And we know what's going on with the rainforest. We know that we have problems with deforestation. But you might say, well, what is it? How are we going to do this with technology, right? What is it we know that we don't know? Why are people still cutting down rainforest when we know that it's a challenge, right? And I use rainforest as a really easy example because first we have a great nonprofit partner in this organization called the Rainforest Partnership, they're working locally with local and indigenous populations. We're working with technology organizations and with investors to figure out really what's the problem. And over the course of the past year, we figured out the biggest rationale for the problem, right? Now, Rainforest Partnership, where you see all the butterflies, these are different places in the world where they've identified and they've started working on projects to understand how to make a change in the environment, how to make a change working with the local people to prevent people from doing this, right? We don't want to see the trees get cut down. And one of the things I like to say is, we never understand. No one ever looks at that stand of trees from that beautiful spot that we showed in the first slide and says, gosh, I really need to cut down these trees today, right? People do it for an economic reason. They do it because of ignorance. They do it because they don't understand the value of the standing forest. And how do you communicate the value of the standing forest? Well, one of the first things I didn't talk about was the people who were living in the forest. You saw a little bit about them if you read the text in the slide, right? There are people who are living there who they see the value of the standing forest. There are people who extract the value of that all the time in the drugs that we use, in some of the fabrics that we use. Everybody who's used things who's eaten food that's kind of packaged, it probably has palm oil in it, right? A lot of it has soy in it. And if you've used your cell phones, right? Everybody here has used cell phones where the materials for the battery comes from mining in places like this. And everybody's eaten meat, right? So I've just talked about the 4 major criteria for driving deforestation, right? Soy, palm oil, mining, meat, right? And some of that's, it's ag for meat, right? So what we need to understand is a better way to actually use the land on the planet to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, and also to extract the value of it in a way that's equitable, right? That gives value, and it's not some sort of soft, fluffy thing. It's a thing that says the people who lived on the land for generations, the people whose country it is, who want to improve their standard of living, they need to be able to do that, but we need to do that in a smart way. So what's missing? What's been missing has been the data. What's missing has been the way to understand actually what's going on in the rainforest, to know that some sort of intervention that we make by planting a bunch of trees or by cutting down certain trees and replanting the wrong types of trees, or by the things that have happened already in climate change that have altered this landscape for good, those sort of things are the challenges that we need to understand, right? So by going out with some things like 5G and leveraging AI, whether it's satellites or drones or sensors or all these other technologies, these things can give us the data so we actually know what the good interventions are, what the results of them are, so that we can replicate that, not just in one rainforest in the Amazon, but in different parts of the world where we want to protect the forest or we want to reforest. So this is a little bit of what we're about. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we know that we've already started working with, and whether these projects, everything I'm showing you here is a real live project. That's something that we're being involved with right now today. This is a regenerative sandalwood forest in Australia. Well, I don't know how many people know what sandalwood is. No? Okay. In certain parts of the world, sandalwood is sacred, right? The oil, the wood, there's a lot of medicinal purposes for the wood, but sandalwood in the wild is dying out, it's becoming extinct, right? So in order to actually have a plantation that is not monoculture, because monoculture is one of the reasons that we have all this runoff, we have all these problems in the planet, so you do it in a regenerative way. What do? These are relatively straight trees, but there are shrubs, there's ground cover, there's soil, this is a net, we believe, a net carbon sink as you're growing these trees over their lifetime before you harvest the trees. So, but the ability to tell exactly how much and quantify how much carbon is captured and how you can actually effectively and sustainably harvest some of the sandalwood while you replant the next and have a very good environmental approach for doing that. We don't have all the data for it yet, but we're actually working on how to capture that, how to monitor it, and how to put that into a financial market. So you can actually have futures contracts on carbon capture as you're growing more, or you could really understand this in a very visceral way to qualify the value of the investment. What's another example of what's out here? This is a picture from a kelp forest, also in Australia, but this is just convenient that it's actually in Australia, from a different guy. His name's Brian. And Brian's doing something called deep ocean permaculture. And what he's saying is, well, you can grow on land with regenerative agriculture, and you can capture carbon out of the environment, right? But you can also grow in the water, because the ocean is a big sink of carbon, or at least it used to be before we did some things that aren't so great to it, right? So with regenerative agriculture on land, I'm preventing things from going into the ocean, chemicals from going into the ocean, acidification, all those sorts of things, right? Now, if I grow seaweed in the ocean like this, in a regenerative way, I can actually recreate those areas, those habitats that have been damaged. I get marine life. I get fast-growing kelp that sucks carbon out of the atmosphere that I can use for food, I can use for pharmaceuticals, I can use for clothing, and if I really have a whole lot of it and I don't have anything to do with it, I can tow it out to sea and drop it to the bottom of the ocean, and is now a deep carbon sink, right? Why do we care about this if we're talking about 5G and AI and all these different technologies? Well, we need to be able to map this massive ecosystem on the planet and understand these impacts and capture this data. It's also important, I think, for people who are trying to figure out who they are, what they're about, what they care about. If I live in Helsinki and I think this is awesome, I might feel like I'm a fish out of water, right? But I want people to understand, to be inspired by wherever you are in the capital stack. You've heard a bunch of different stories about where technology can take you. Wherever you are in that stack, you're valuable, you're needed. This is a massive greenfield story, right? This is acres of diamonds. This is where 100 impact unicorns could come in the next 5 years, not less the next 10. So why am I dream big? What are my why nows? Well, okay. It's a critical time in the environment, right? For UN Sustainable Development Goals. Everybody knows about the storms. Everybody knows about the challenges that we're seeing. We know that they're going to get worse, and urgently we need to address them now. This is a great opportunity for this. It's a one-in-a-lifetime transition in this economic story, because literally every week we talk with people on 4 continents about these different issues when we get on our social audio or different shows that we talk about. And everyone's talking about, how do we fix capitalism? How do we change the economic system so that it can work for everyone? This is a massive transition, a massive creation of new wealth. Done well, it's not challenging existing wealth, it's net new to everyone. And what are the opportunities? Well, hundreds of force sector emission-driven companies that can come out of this. And I'm just scratching the surface when I talk about the rainforest, because there are a number of different areas of impact. Where do we focus? We focused on waste to value, regenerative agriculture. We focus on a couple other really important areas where we know that there are some things that we can do, and whether we're doing it there or whether we're doing it in rural Finland, where we know that the paper and pulp industry has gone down, and we need to come up with new innovations to give those folks the education, the access, the opportunity, the new industries to make that part of the world thrive. Just like in the US, these things happen in our backyards and around the corner, and they're also effective, just as effective, all the way around the world. So I am going to pause there and give the mic to my great colleague, Bobby Amiri, to continue the conversation.
All right. Thanks, Phil. I am really excited to talk to you all today. I'm from Silicon Valley, as you heard from Phil as well. We're here because we're excited about the ecosystem here in Finland. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today more about Mökki. I just learned about this word since I've been here, but we're really excited about harnessing the talent here in Finland and creating these cross sections across the world that can really develop innovation at a much more rapid pace than if we do things alone, right? And so we're seeking out really strong partners. I want to go into a little bit about my background to begin with. I am a native of Silicon Valley. I've been working as a investor as well as a startup accelerator entrepreneur for several years now, previously with IBM and HP and sales and marketing, but I really love working with early stage startups. It's so interesting to me to see some of these new ideas develop, and certainly with the 5G and the aspirations of 6G, as we've all heard, there's so much opportunity, so much in the way of markets that can be disrupted, new ones that can be introduced, so it's a really exciting time to be alive. I don't want to spend too much time on my background, but what I do want to start with is a quote from my colleague's, Keith's former boss, John Chambers. It says, if you don't innovate fast, disrupt your industry, disrupt yourself, you'll be left behind. This is such an important quote. It couldn't be more true today. In fact, there's been 52% turnover of the Fortune 500 companies in this since the year 2000, right? And so there's certainly a lot to be learned from this, but corporations that certainly invest heavily in R&D generally do okay, but what I'm here to talk about is more about open innovation activities in the way of partnering with universities, with other accelerators to help and drive new innovation from the outside in. And so some of the ways that we can do that, and in fact, I had a chance to go and visit Aalto University, what a fine institution. Had a chance to talk about Oulu University, Xank, if I'm pronouncing that correct, out of Mökki. But some very fascinating talent coming out of all these institutions. And the focus of 5G is such an important one. We see that there's so much talent. How do we harness that talent and create new opportunities for new solutions in the future? And so my background has primarily been in running acceleration programs on behalf of governments, most recently South Korea, Mexico, and in Indonesia, in fact. And so, but I also do corporate accelerators too. There are two use cases I do want to highlight in the short time that I have left. One is Google, and the other is Visa. So it's two of the top 5 most recognizable brands in the world. Each had different reasons for standing up these acceleration programs to begin with. So Google was looking more at startups at the early stage from a horizontal perspective. They had programs running in India, in Indonesia, Brazil, and then in the US. And I was fortunate enough to be the partner that was selected for the US program. We looked at really early stage companies. It did not matter what industry they were part of, but they wanted to understand how they could, sell cloud services, get line of sight into new entrepreneurs, new solutions, but also sell like Firebase. They have all these products that they were looking to sell. And so how do you do that? Forming relationships with companies at the early stage, helping them develop and kind of reeling them into their ecosystem from an early stage was one of their key KPIs, if you will, throughout that program. Visa, on the other hand, would grow 19%. If they did nothing at all, they'd grow 19% year over year for the next 20 years. And they were very adamant about presenting that and being fully transparent about just how strong and dominant they are in the market. But they also wanted to not be complacent, rather. And so one of the things that they wanted to do was learn about fintech companies that were potentially going to be disrupting them in the near future. And so they took a look at cryptocurrency, biometric technology, as well as cybersecurity, social credit scores, et cetera. And so by understanding these technologies sooner than later, they were able to really remain competitive and potentially partner or acquire some of these companies outright. So different reasons for standing up acceleration programs, but certainly part of their strategic roadmap as they look to remain competitive in the future. So typically what these cohorts look like is they're very small, 5 to 7 companies usually. There is a little bit of investment that goes into it. The benefit to the startups is that they retain their equity. So they don't need to worry about a messy cap table, giving up equity, but also the benefit to them is having access to the partner network and to new customers as a result. And so we'll have more time to go over kind of the benefits in Q&A if you're interested, but certainly there are plenty of benefits to startup founders. So if there are any startup founders here today that have gone through the chasm of death, as they call it, as they start their new companies, it can be a very, very lonely place to be a solo founder or to have a very small team and try and disrupt a new industry. And so working with corporations, working with a greater ecosystem of support can be really critical for early stage startup success. And so we're encouraging more of a collaborative atmosphere between corporations and universities, and certainly with the talent that is in Finland as it exists, the sky's the limit. I think there's a lot of opportunity for corporations to issue challenges to the market, and then have some of the new bright minds that are developing to really think differently about how to solve these key problems that they're facing, and some which that they're not even sure exist to begin with. So I don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to encourage you all to come and speak with us afterward. We're all eager to learn about you and grow our network as well while we're here in Finland. And with that said, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer it, but I think we're going to spend some time on a panel, right, and answer questions as a collective here. So thank you for your time.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Petri Saarinen. I'll be moderating the panel. So I'd like to invite Phil, Bobby, Arjita, Osiris, and Keith on the stand again. And we will have a final keynote from Atte Leskinen, who's telling the story about the 5G Mökki and the vision how to build it as the future of the young people that we want to empower now. So basically, the outtake from me is that we've been talking about the pioneers. We want to engage young people. We've been talking about disruption. Obviously, 5G is about disruption. We've had the panelists mentioning that disruption doesn't mean bad things. It basically means that we're basically building something which is working, which is great, which is good, but we have to break it to make it even better. So I think that going from 5G even to 6G is basically breaking the best educational system and creating even a better. And that's basically something that I think, for example, about Finnish education. So we basically have to be really radical and even think that how can we break Finnish education to build even a bigger and greater educational system. And again, so basically short bridge to the history of telecommunications. So the first telephone line in Finland was built within 1877, And then Alexander Graham Bell, he established ATT 8 years later. So the first networks were not built by teleoperators. They were built by pioneers. Now we are empowering the pioneers who are the young people. And 5G is also, it's not anymore the game of teleoperators. So we're building private networks. We can invite the fourth sector communities to build their own networks. That's empowering people. So that's kind of my output or take to the presentations here. And Arjita, what would be the two advices that you would give for the young people here? And then maybe another advice.
Just two?
Just two.
I'll walk around with the mics if somebody has questions.
Hello? Is it working? Okay. Two pieces of advice. First, startups are changing. You do not build in a garage, and overnight you do not just wear a startup hoodie and raise $1 billion and become a unicorn. That's not how startups are built now. Startups take time. They go and become bankrupt. They fail. They have to pivot. So go with that intention, and it's okay to go slow. Hustle is great. Take care of yourself. That is super important. That is my first piece of advice. So if you want to start a startup, do it at least thinking, I'm going to work on this for the next decade, at least. Or don't do it. There is no other way to do startups. Second piece of advice would be use existing technology. There is so much out there already. You do not have to build from scratch. Use foundations and talk to people, talk to corporations. Start talking and networking, not the day you need money or not the day you need co-founder, but the day you thought of the idea. That's what you have to do as a founder. Those would be my two pieces of advice.
Thank you. So Keith Ko, so you're coming from the financial industry background. So would there be any things that would help Finland, because within your presentations, you showed a lot of the statistics on the global market with 5G. How can we help together Finland kind of raise the flag that we're actually the best 5G nation in the world?
So there's a saying, it takes a village. It's actually going to take Finland. I think it's part of, which is a strength, I think it's part of national identity. I mean, we just talked about, like, 8 years before Alexander Graham Bell, how Finland had the first concept of a network. I talked about how, even though the slide doesn't show Finland anymore as a top 10, we know that the DNA in the country has the talent and actually has the history. So in terms of how this should, well, speaking in an observation how this could work, is I give examples of how other university systems around the world have figured out how to be pioneers or leading in their particular field. So one example is, I'm a Californian. We have the UC system, UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Davis. 25 years ago, there was a concerted effort to raise the profile of certain UCs. And so today, UC Santa Barbara is considered perhaps the #1 quantum computing university outside, we don't know all the details of somewhere in China, but like that is an example of a concerted effort between the public and the private sector. The way that it worked was the chancellor of the entire system at the time basically had a proposal that the UCs without the highest profiles could all bid on being this next supercomputing center, and that they would match, the chancellor would match dollar for any private donation. And then with that, they actually pioneered and attracted 12 PhDs from around the world to then start, which 25 years later is considered top of its class. So without knowing so much about how the Finnish work, I think that is something very, as someone who's observing, that's something very doable because you have companies like Nokia here, right? You have other private institutions. Also, I think we'll go a little bit deeper than the question. I think in terms of the fabric of what 5G is, we heard this from Yuli, we heard this from Professor Ari, that when you think about verticals and use cases, we talked about drones, we talked mobility, we talked about manufacturing, fourth industrial revolution. being able to lay that fabric and the building blocks, creating the ecosystem, you have all those raw materials here. Those resources already exist. So really, it's just back to the corporate identity, national identity, and the corporate identity that come together and make that happen. Become the world's leading research center on 5G, 6G, and then go forth and enable others. Also, you have a very great test bed. You have less, which isn't necessarily bad, it's good. You have a very favorable regulatory environment compared to some other jurisdictions. So that's why I think you have a really great opportunity for that.
Great. Osiris and, for example, Bobby, so you're kind of working a lot with startup companies. I would assume that it's young people within the startup companies. We heard from Veli-Pekka Luoma that their kind of current focus is on Industry 4.0, those kind of things. And these kind of brings an idea on my mind that what would be the industries that you would see that would be built by young people? So if the corporates are working on Industry 4.0, so what industries would you kind of see that young people will kind of take over and build their own ecosystems within 5G and so on?
Well, I think Arjita touched on that, right? She mentioned quite a few different in the way of the NFT craze, the energy that it takes to mint these pieces of art, music. We have some great conversation with folks who are creators, who are looking at NFTs as a new wave of protecting IP for digital creators and entertainers. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. I think you know, there's just so much opportunity in the way of the way that the blockchain works and how it can really, you know, provide this kind of protection and seamless way of navigating different use cases for blockchain, and certainly, you know, I'll defer to Keith and Phil on that, but you know, certainly that's just an example of one industry that certainly is ripe for continued disruption.
I think EdTech is probably one of them, and also some points that Phil touched upon with environmental literacy and the kind of capabilities that we have to run net neutral carbon initiatives that further drive growth on this planet. And so I think that when you think about the kelp beds and the kind of approaches to deforestation that we need to take, I definitely see the younger generation, some initiatives that we've already been working with and have talks with Gen Z for the trees, specifically in their conversations around palm olive and how they're contributing to deforestation. So I definitely see like the younger generation really taking hands-on approach with the environment and developing companies that are not only sustainable but regenerative and using technology in that approach to really drive the points home.
Okay, so before going to any more questions within the audience, would there be any questions for any of the speakers? We had one.
I will bring you the mic.
Thank you. I had a question for Keith. You were talking about the gross outbound of 5G in one of your slides, like it was $1 million. I was wondering, I'm working for an operator actually, so and we are fighting about trying very hard to find a return on investment around 5G and to find how to make business and money around 5G. So I was wondering how come this money and what use cases there were behind these figures?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
What were the use cases behind the figures that you had for revenue on the 5G models that you talked about?
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, what were some of the use cases behind how 5G will be generating these revenues? So I think back to thinking about, I kind of touched on, I came out of Cisco Systems. We are in a state where, as Professor Ari was saying, that we have 20-year cycles in technology. So we were in the cycle of what, not a bad thing, but we had these monolithic companies, monolithic ways of looking at it. So we think about Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco. A lot of these companies are, like Oracle is still a monolith, SAP is still a monolith. Cisco has had a lot of challenge in terms of software-defined networking. And as we think about the, what I was talking about, equity and inclusion, increasing equality globally, it's because the cost of technology for adoption is going down. I'll tie this to what I was talking to, what Arjita was saying, is like when we think about startups, the cost for someone today to start a startup, even though they should have the mindset of being in it for a decade, the risk analysis of like quitting your corporate job and doing a startup is far less risk than it would have been 5, 10, or 20 years ago, especially if you think about somebody who, we see a lot more mid-career and older career people jumping into the startup world. So when we think about what 5G and 6G are going to represent, new business models, new revenue streams may not look anything like what we're used to in terms of monolithic tech companies or other monolithic industries and companies that exist today, because we talk about decentralization. So if I think about a little bit like, I don't want to get too into blockchain because that's not what we're talking about there, we're talking about 5G. But we think about blockchain, we think about how certain societies, the reason why blockchain is important is that people want a trustless transaction system, because in certain societies people don't trust in how they're fair dealing. And so we think about certain underserved communities. In order for those transactions to happen, you need to have a fabric, a framework of trust embedded into the system. A lot of people think decentralization is part of that. So blockchain, crypto, decentralized asset. So we talk about sub-Saharan Africa. You can't even have this conversation because they don't even yet have telecom technology capable of doing that. And I would say when we think about payment systems, like in the United States, Western Union, sending money to sub-Saharan Africa, it might cost 18 to 22% in fees. But with a blockchain, a decentralized system, those fees could be almost nothing, but you still need the network, you still need the technology to do that. 5G, lower latency, less power consumption over a wide distributed area. So this is where the revenues come up, because there's going to be new applications, new companies forming to take advantage. It might look something completely different than today. So large companies that have large amounts of revenue may not necessarily be the model. There's going to be that whole space being filled up, and that's where I think the promise is going to be. I hope that's helpful. Is that okay? We can go on all these different use cases, but great question. Anyone else? Any other questions in the audience? Come on.
Any brave one here? Great, excellent. So then I'll ask the last pioneer to come to the stage. So welcome, Atte. So he's going to tell us how the young people will build the dream for deploying 5G services for communities.
Yes, thank you very much, Petri. It's awesome to be here, and I feel so inspired after all of these wonderful speeches, and it's great to actually hear some of these examples already. It makes my job a lot easier as well now, because the ambition level of these examples, it's so wonderful. So my topic is the 5G Mökki and the 5G Productivity Accelerator by Start North and the network powering that. 5G enables business innovation across multiple industries with significant social and economic benefits. This is from the European Investment Bank, but I think that all around the conversation about 5G, this topic is, this theme is coming more and more clear throughout the day, throughout the cycle of the technology. And most likely there is no achieving the Industry 4.0, no way, without 5G connectivity of the devices. So for example, with Nokia, the 30% improvement in productivity in a production site, that's so impressive that by eliminating all of the waste from the production, for example, the power of the social advantages on that, it's superb. These kind of pilots of the utilization of the technology, they've already been started and really much in focus throughout the industries. For example, in education industries as well, thinking of the COVID times, everything turning virtual, that's important part of the topic as well, to bring that more bring that discussion forward about more immersive learning experiences. But for actual investments and large-scale adaptation of the technology by industries, I think the technology is not that clear yet to most of the people. The examples brought by EY in a research were the use cases pictured by the industries were pretty not so ambitious. There was freight monitoring or patient monitoring, where your stuff is at a warehouse. Those are pretty much things that you can basically do with the current technology as well. So I think that the technology investment case is not that clear yet. And bringing that technology closer to people actually would make a significant effect. But the problem is, at least in Finland, technology industries will need 130,000 new professionals in 10 years. But the problem, technology studies was the least applied field of studies. So this is quite a big of a problem in that sense. So our solution, a hub for knowledge, collaboration, and connections, the 5G Mökki. This kind of network connects the top universities, academia, with the companies and other organizations to develop those services and develop those products for people to use. 5G Mökki, not only a physical structure, although it's pretty nice quality piece of Nordic values as well, but it offers an easy and efficient way to collaborate with different people, with different services, for example. And on top of that, the development, it makes it visible, it makes it understandable. So always when there's a new technology, that demand won't match the supply in talent, for example. The IT executives see this as the talent shortage as the most significant adoption barrier to 64% of emerging technologies. This is a huge number that we need to be able to match within the next couple of years, because, well, of course, the best talent will be sourced by someone, and we really want this technology to be inclusive as well. So this is basically a huge motivation for the 5G Mökki initiative and the network initiative. So as this was founded by the students in 2019 at the Aalto University summer course in collaboration with real-life use cases by some Fortune 500 companies as well. So this is it's a way to bring that technology close to the consumers, close to the next level professionals. To familiarize and excite people about the technology, it's super important. And the mission is to accelerate the learning and applying of the technology with the 10 values that we see as fundamental to the network. So to conclude, the productivity accelerator was developed from the 5G Mökki. We realized that as companies do not have that kind of an idea on how to apply the technology, we needed to bring this kind of initiative to match the needs and the ideas with solutions. So we will promise that we will get you started, and we will keep your productivity up to date with the latest developments, with instant access to the network full of latest information, the top talent, and industry-wide knowledge. And to combine that, we have the access to the youth, for example, with our significant connections to the academia, for example, via our summer courses and things like that, good with all the initiatives in that sense. So Start North is committed to boost the global know-how on 5G to enable sustainable, economical, and social change powered by 5G. And to succeed in this, we need the help of all our stakeholders, which I see a room full of. Thank you very much, and I really hope to have some good conversations afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Atte. Next, we will hear sustainable perspective for the new technologies from Lars Ling, CEO and founder of the Cleantech Region Impact Group. We met Lars first time at Nordic Future 2018, and after that we've been with Lars all around the globe, for example at San Francisco 2019 for Nordic Impact Week and SoCap. So Lars.
Good advice, thank you. Can you hear me now? Yeah. So let's bring up this. Thank you so much, everybody. How are you doing right now? You okay? It's been 2 hours. Should we take a little stretch? If you all stand up, take a deep breath before we go into this final. You okay with that? Come on, stand up. And breathe in. And out. Perfect. So let's go into this final. Let's see if we can stitch these sessions together. Let's see if we can make sense of 5G and how all these things and amazing speakers have been telling us about before. So let's get on. So we're going to have a combo here in the end as well. We're going to have a combination of myself, and we're going to focus on a case with food. So you're going to see the first time in the Nordic Baltics and the world, Nanoponics is going to be introduced. You're going to see and understand what it is when we come in. So after me, I'm going to invite Robert up, and we're going to introduce you to that world of indoor farming, field touch based on the importance of food. But I can't emphasize enough about the food. But here on it as well, can we go beyond sustainability? How many of you are comfortable with sustainability and what it is? What does it mean for you? I mean, sustainability is one of the world's most used words today. But what is it really? Okay, so let's go on. To look at this opportunity together now, what you've been hearing with new technology, why would it be important? And where is the opportunity of technology together? So the reason is people, you and me, us. We're close to 8 billion today, and by 2050, we're going to be 10 billion. 10 billion people need food. You eat every day, right? Yes? Yes, yeah. And we should also say to everyone listening in, we're live from Slush in Finland. Hey, everybody listening in. So we need food, we need water, and we need energy. And to produce food, what do we need? More water and more energy. So how on earth are we going to look at that and organize and take height for that to 2050? And particularly, how can we enable and use technology? So I'm going to touch base on what does it mean with 5G, AI, AR, and virtual technology. I claim that 5G and the technology you see today is more important than internet itself. I don't know if you would agree. Internet was pretty important, right? It has meant that the digital industrial revolution has been possible. But why is 5G now, AI, and the reason more important? Well, it's because of data. Everything today is data. But you don't do much if you only have data as per se. You need to be able to analyze the data. And that's kind of my background, 10 years in data capture around the world. Capturing data, all incoming data for companies. Analyze the data, clean the data, understand the data, match the data, and automate as much of those tedious, boring manual processes that you can do. And not just that, you need to create value of that data for someone. Then you have a good business. And that's the opportunity here on the Nordics and what we've been talking here, the next leap of technology, 5G and 6G. Because what does it mean with that? It's been said from everybody here today. Low latency and instant connection. And with 5G, Internet of Things, and you know that all devices can be connected. So you have sensors. What does that mean? So if everything is connected, like smartwatches, clothes, clocks, everything, and you collect the data from that. That's a process. In industry, manufacturing, every process, you can analyze that data. And if you can do that, you can improve. So AI, for example, together with 5G in industry and manufacturing is just mind-blowing today, how you can improve the efficiency in manufacturing. So, in this, let's make it a little bit lighter. I want to provide an opportunity for you. And to give a little bit of story why I'm here right now, it started 2018 when a crazy team of Start North connected me. And we met in Sundsvall. Could you believe it? In middle of Sweden. How many have been to Sundsvall? The Start North team. Yes, yes, yes. Have you been to Sundsvall? Okay, so we met there, and then the rest is history. So we'll be doing a lot of great things, and this is a place, and you recognize the photographer on this photo? He's sitting over there. It's Atte who was presenting. So this opportunity, what we have been doing, and you can ask questions about this later, all the activities, but have been bridging Start North and the team from here with Silicon Valley. And that's what we've been doing for 9 years. And I see that it pays off. Now Phil and his team is here as well. And that's connections, bridging, collaborating, as you all been saying. And we met Phil, that was 2019, right? The last time at the finance event down in Mountain View. So what is this then about the opportunity? We've been doing this bridge for 9 years, bridging Silicon Valley, California, with the Nordic and the Baltics. So mark in your calendars, how many like golf here? Okay, a lot. Okay, how many like to do business? Good. So this is the best opportunity in your lifetime. So in October, Friday the 14th, we're going to have a Nordic, Baltic, Californian business summit together. Take from here and see how we utilize technology. How do we improve it with technology as well in that? And Pebble Beach, the Californians here, you know what kind of, it's a magical place. So it tickles all the senses as well, being present in that place. So ask the Start North team or myself about that as well. So I'm not saying so much, you can figure out and you can ask me questions. I'm based in London, I'm Swedish, entrepreneur for 35 years. I've been in health for 10 years. I've been doing tech for 10 years, hardware, software, consulting. I probably experienced all the challenges you can do as an entrepreneur. And also some good upsides, but it's constant learning and constant work every day to be an entrepreneur. Flicking into what everybody said here about the challenges and so on. So you can reach out to Linktree, ask me questions about those things, and I will be happy. And with that, we're going to tie it into, so I want to give you a big hand now for Robert. Welcome up on stage, and we're going to talk about food and how this impact. Come on, Robert. And you get a microphone. Here. So
okay,
we go on the other side. Yeah. And the cameras, do you get Robert over there as well?
I'll be over here. Can you hear this one?
Okay, so let's go to a case. Robert, he's a fantastic person. He just moved to Stockholm, Sweden after 16 years in Bangkok. He did a life change. He took his family, his wife, twin boys, and moved to Stockholm, Sweden. Can you believe that?
A bit of crazy considering the temperature outside. I don't know if it's a good one.
Why? Here's the thing. Why did Robert do this life change? Because
yeah, since we've been involved in indoor vertical farming since 2017, unfortunately, so I'm Robert Akerblom. Our founder, Mr. Sushat Charnusati from Singapore, he couldn't be here today, but since 2017...
So take the microphone closer to the mouth.
Yeah, okay.
So actually, you get it now. I'm Sushat here. Sushat was supposed to be online, but it wasn't possible. It didn't work out. So I'm Sushat now in this. So that's kind of the part of the role play.
Okay.
So Robert, you did the good thing.
I don't know. But anyway, so Apart from coming with the family, it's also a knowledge transfer from Asia, Singapore, to the Nordics. And we're addressing sustainable food and feed production via a new system. It's Nanoponics. We're stepping away from indoor vertical farming, going away from.
So let's get into that. How many of you here knows about Nanoponics? We have one here.
Yeah, you one. He's.
If you want to know about food, you should talk to Johan there. He is Mr. Food Tech in Sweden and around the world, and hosts the Food Summit in Sweden. So why, again, coming in, nanoponics versus aqua and hydroponics? How many of you have heard about aqua and hydroponic systems? That's kind of the basis where you take in indoor farming. So you use controlled environmental agriculture systems where you actually can build in any space an indoor farm and production. And I came in contact with this 15 years ago, which is now a system here in Sweden called Pekka's Tomater. They do tomatoes and fish. And it's kind of a lot of challenges, but it's also very beneficial to actually be able to produce food anywhere in any space today. So if you're looking on the opportunities and the differences then, Robert, what's the benefits with nanoponics compared to the traditional systems?
So nanoponics, we step away from traditional soil or water-based solution, and we take the nutrient and transform it into gas form. And by that enabling plants to take both nutrients and vitamins. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's on the system side, but you've all been flying and you know, do you have the gas masks that eventually can come down in an emergency situation? You've all been in that situation. It's the same. You pull down, you have a gas mask, and in that you actually produce a gas or steam onto any seeds or any plants, and you can add that with nutrients or vitamins. And that means that you can actually have the next level of biohacking. So when you go to a grocery store, and in the end, what we've been looking at, you can actually order your food to be produced and delivered to your local food store. So basically, what we did here, and as well, come to that, go to that. What we did here as well, because we participated in this challenge that Startnorth and Alto and 5G Mökki put up. How to look what 5G can do for this whole process. So you probably heard the term from food to fork. So what happens from that? Can we use 5G technology and AI from the moment when it grows in any environment until it gets harvested, until it gets distributed and ends up in your store? So with technology today, absolutely that you can do that. So let's go back to that as well then. Talk about the versus here. There's also a big risk of contamination in traditional systems. And how is that with nanoponics, Robert?
Yes, in traditional systems, when you can, the systems can easily be contaminated in hydroponics, and that means that you need to purge the whole system, but also that the plants are wasted and you need to restart. When we're talking nanoponics, contaminations evaporate, so we don't have any contamination risks, or some, but.
So Robert, we have 2 minutes, so let's wrap this up then for those 2 minutes for everybody listening. So the reason here, nanoponics come to the traditional is that the lighting is the biggest cost for anything. It's 40% of the investments. With these new solutions, we want to talk to you who are interested to get started here in the Nordics. So we really want you here who are now interested in looking into this to build Arctic food labs for this environment, to be connected to Singapore, where it's been in production since 2017. So, yeah, and you're all welcome to Norrsken in Stockholm, in Sweden. It's an impact hub in Stockholm, where we're going to have the launch of this system in January. So talk to Robert or myself. And Mia Sushad, I would just say thank you, Dan, because we're coming in on the time here. And that was to everybody listening as well. We are looking for you who are interested, are having an existing farm. We're going to roll out training for the first cohort for Nordic and Baltics. And it's not just Nordic Baltics. If you are in other markets with California or other well, please get in touch with us. We're going to have the first education. They're building the next version in Singapore at Changi Airport. It's going to be in the end of April next year, the first training, if you want to be the one who produces the food that we need in the future with help of technology. So with that, final words, Robert, great job. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert and Lars. Our time has come to an end, but before we leave, a big thank you for all the speakers and of course the audience. It's been an amazing and very educational afternoon. Before you go, have some snacks there, some of them left on the table, and make some new contacts, because that's why we are here at Slush. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the Slush.